So I'm making a new cosplay again. So MagicCon Vegas isn't until May, but my work starts now, here in January. At least if I want to avoid the dreaded con crunch and craft-related despair that comes with trying to finish a costume in the very last week. So this is gonna be my fourth cosplay that I've done to compete in a MagicCon event. If you've been following my journey at all, you would know that last September, in Atlanta, at MagicCon Atlanta, I won Best in Show with my Zul Ashur Lich Lord, which was super cool. So that means I get to participate in the Grand Championship in November in Atlanta again. But that's a ways away. I got time. I can fit a couple more cosplays in, right? It's not till November. That's forever away. Also, since I won the last one, I feel a little less pressure. Like, obviously I want to do really well, and I'm gonna be definitely putting my all into it, but I usually have very strict criteria about characters that I pick, especially when it comes to magic cards. I want to pick something recognizable, typically a character that has like a specific name, so it's like something, the something something. It just typically helps for recognizability. There's typically more cards that you can use as references, but for this one, since I'm feeling a little less pressure, I just picked something that I thought was pretty. It's very odd for me to just pick something that I just think is cool. I'm doing a common card from Eldraine. I'm doing the Conceited Witch. She's so pretty. I have such big plans for this cosplay. I'm gonna throw, my whole crafting self into this. I think it's gonna be sick. There are a lot of details that I think is going to make it definitely a challenge. Is gonna push me. It's a sewing heavy build, which isn't something I normally get to do either, because I like to have a good balance of props and sewing, but sewing is really where I feel most at home. So I think this is just gonna be a really fun and refreshing cosplay to build for me. So I really hope you follow along. So I kind of hopped right into it, and a good place to start, a good foundation for your cosplay is just that, the foundational garments. When you get to really high level cosplay, I compete in the expert category. I have a degree in apparel design. I've been doing this for a couple years now. It's best to start with these foundational garments. A lot of people overlook them, I think, but it's something that can give you a really good competitive edge and show a attention to detail down to the smallest things that you don't even see. Is it necessary? No, but it's again one thing that you can show the judges that you kind of went above and beyond the extra mile on. So this cosplay has two foundational garments. It has a hoop skirt. Now I did have a hoop skirt, but I decided to remake it because my first one I did for my Olivia Valdarin cosplay. It was pretty rough. I was competing at a beginner level at that point, so it needed a bit of an upgrade. And then I am also doing she has this sort of lacy neck and sleeve piece, and instead of making just like a shirt, I am making a whole sort of lingerie underdress. It's cute, and again, it just shows that I'm kind of going that extra mile. I'm putting that extra attention to detail. I think it really feeds well into what I imagine her character being. So yeah, so that's where I started.
So this was the old hoop skirt. As you can see, it's serviceable, but we can do better. I started by opening this up and pulling out all of the metal boning that I used, because waste not, want not. I'm gonna reuse this. It's the exact same size that I'm gonna be doing for the new one, so it works out. As you can see, I am just cutting everything out. This was a bit of a process. These long pieces of boning really kind of have a mind of their own and will just flop all over my studio while I'm working. But after a hard-fought battle, I got all of them out. Here they are, and I could throw this part away. So long, old hoop skirt. That is until I realized I'm going to need to get the measurements from the old one. So I pulled it back out of the trash so that I can measure it and make it the same size for my new one. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. I liked the shape. We're gonna just make it the same size. I had this leftover purple lining fabric from Zul Ashur, and it is just perfect for the new skirt. So I went ahead and started ripping this into 1 3/4 inch strips, and this will be the new channel for my boning.
So I'm gonna sew along this edge, leaving like an inch or so here. So like the two ends together. I'll put the thing in and then I'll hand stitch it up.
So I just went over to my industrial machine and started sewing these channels together. It's pretty straightforward, And then I just went ahead and flipped them. This is probably one of the more tedious parts of making this skirt. It's just a lot of doing the same thing over and over again. Basically how I'm flipping this inside out is I have a pin connected to one end and I'm putting it back through the channel until it flips all the way back. I'm then gonna go over to my pressing station and make it nice and flat. Always remember to press. It is the easiest way to elevate your work. And then since this is a tiered hoop skirt, we get to go back and do the whole process over again until we have a channel for each of the 4 rings. Next, I'm going to be moving on to the base. Basically, I'm going to be making channels in the bottom and the top for my boning to go through by basically doing a rolled hem and catching just the very edge of it.
Now, there are definitely feet that you can get for your sewing machine that will do this for you. I don't know how to use them, so I just use my tiny little fingers and fold it that way. It's a little more time consuming, but it looks nice. It looks nice. But look how clean it is. It looks so good. Here's the other side. It looks so good.
Next, I'm going to move on to the waistband. On the old one, I had just a tie in the back, but this time I am going to be doing an elastic with a bra clasp. Not only does this look nicer, but it's a lot more secure. I had the other one actually fall off while I was wearing it. I'm also cutting and finishing the ends of my lengthwise supports. And then I'm gonna throw a fusible interfacing onto the inside of the fabric part of my waistband for some extra stability. I'm gonna roll up these lengthwise supports because these are gonna get sewn into the waistband, see right here, so that when I flip it right side out, it'll look nice and neat and tucked in. See, just like that. I had to be very careful not to catch the end while I was sewing. So now I flipped it and these are all connected nice and neat. And then the elastic will go right in here. I just top stitched the seam allowance for the elastic right in that channel I made and then began cutting all of these little pieces of ribbon that are gonna hold my boning. So I messed up a little bit. I probably should have left the channels that I'm going to put my boning through unsewn. It would have been a little easier because then I could worm it through, but I'm just gonna have to go through and do each little strand together and keep the channels in while I work. So it's a different way of doing it. It's not necessarily the wrong way of doing it. It just might take me a little longer. So here's what I mean. I put these channels through the ribbon that I just cut and we'll have to sew it like that. So it's like this. I will eventually press these down so that they lay a little flatter. But I have the seam allowance under here, so it looks nice. And yes, now I just gotta do this 4 more times and then put the bottom on it. And then we put the boning through it, and it's a skirt. As a skirt. So after repeating that process 4 times, I am going to put the bottom on, and all it needs is the boning. So I sat my ass on the ground and started feeding the boning back through those channels. After it was fully fed through, I went back and hand stitched up the hole I had left so it looks nice, neat, and clean. You should not be even able to tell it's hand stitched. To stitch up the bottom, I had to actually hang it off my mannequin. You would be amazed at some of the positions I end up finding myself in while I'm working. And that's it, that's the new hoop skirt. I'm incredibly happy with how it turned out, especially in comparison to the old one. And now it will match my character. I asked Pickle what he thought, and yeah, he did not care in the slightest. Now it's time to move on to my little lacy dress. So here is a very sped up process of me draping my base pattern. I start most of my projects this way. I really prefer to drape instead of flat patterning, depending on what it is, but for something like this, I feel like draping works a lot better. I'm basically taking my fabric and pinning it to the mannequin where I want it to be. I'm marking my seams, and then I'm gonna take it off of the mannequin and translate those markings and those cuttings into a flat pattern that then I can work with. So here is what that looks like. I've taped down the pattern and I'm just tracing it. I'm tracing those markings so I know where I want my seams to sit and know it will translate back to my body how I wanted it on the mannequin. This is a technique we were taught in school and it's something that really clicked for me, and it's just how I like to develop my patterns. Once I have those patterns traced, I'm going to connect the skirt and the bodice into one big pattern piece. These are my preliminary working patterns. They might not look as nice as they will eventually, but I have my own shorthand, so I understand what I'm doing. Then I'm going to go in and grade my pattern. Grading is the mathematical process of making a pattern larger or smaller, because most people aren't the size of their mannequin. I know I sure am not. And that's why grading is one of my favorite things to do, and I think one of the best skills that you can acquire, not only because it's math and I love math, but it's so easy to translate your patterns to different sizes. After I have my pattern all worked up, I am going back to the floor. You'd be amazed by how often I end up on the floor in this hobby. And I'm going to pin my pattern and cut it out of my drafting fabric to make my first fit sample. I'm just gonna sew it up real quick and then we can do a fitting. So here is the first draft of the underdress. I made it out of this kind of stretch material because I really like this. This is the material I typically use when I am doing samples for my knits, because it's like, it does have a good amount of stretch, but it's still a little more sturdy. I like it. Also, the lace that I got is not super stretchy, so I'm not going to be really yanking it and really testing, the stretch of this fabric. So here is kind of how I go about doing a fitting. So I'm going to put it on, obviously. And for something more complicated, I will usually have someone else help me pin this, but I think this I can just do myself. It is a little big. There's definitely some room in the bust. Another thing you want to do when you're fitting is make sure you're wearing the undergarments you're going to be wearing with your costume the day of, because otherwise it won't fit right. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to be taking in a bit on the sides, both sides. There's quite a bit here, and I'm just going to be pinning all this stuff so that I can see where I need to take it in, and then I can translate that to my pattern. So I'm going to be taking in a little bit on these princess seams. They're just a little wider than I'd like. I'm liking how the skirt itself is sitting. I might take in a bit more on the sides, but the princess seam I feel like is sitting where I like it. I'm also going to be having a slit in this, probably like pretty high on the thigh. But I wanted to pattern it without a slit, try it without a slit just to get fit down first. On the back, it is already kind of giving me that like BBL look I'm going for. I really am looking for it to be very butt hugging. I think I will take in, there's like a little bit too much room on the actual butt. So I'm going to be taking in probably right through here. And I like the length. I think this is a good length. I want it to sit right above my knee. So let me throw some pins in this and then I will come back. Okay. So I've got my pins in. I ended up taking in a lot more of the princess seam. You can eyeball it, but once you get in there, it's really helpful. I only pinned one side because that's not really pulling on this side. When I just pull one, it's easier to just do one. So yeah, I think we'll do this. I'm gonna take the shoulder up just a little bit. There's just like a little space in there. It's gonna be like a 1/4 inch, probably negligible, but I wanna fix it. I'm gonna move my arm's eye out again, just like maybe a 1/2 inch towards my arms, because it's kind of pulling in here now that I've pulled these princess seams. I think the back is good. Also, I think I am happy with how the butt shaping is going. I think I was trying to look at it myself when I was sort of like bending to pin this, but I think when I'm standing, I'm liking where it's sitting. And again, I don't want it to be pulled too tight because the fabric doesn't have a whole bunch of stretch. And I don't want it to be so much like a skin tight. I want it to just really kind of like glide over my shape. So I am not going to do a second little trial here because, well, 2 reasons. I am confident that these changes that I'm making are going to give me the shape I want. Also, as much as I am putting effort into these like undergarments, it wouldn't be a good allocation of my time to go and make a second draft of this when I know it's going to work out. I'm going to make a draft of my sleeve just to make sure I like where that's sitting. Also, when I'm showing this sample I didn't do with any seam allowance on the neck or the shoulders because I wanted to be seeing where these are sitting. If I were to make a draft where I was going to put a sleeve on, I would have a seam allowance here, but I don't. I'm going to just make a sleeve in itself. The collar is going to be super easy to do. I actually might bring this down about a 1/2 inch now that I'm kind of like sitting with it. So just those like couple little things that I'm going to change in my pattern, and I think it'll fit really nice, and then we can move on to our fashion fabric, which is the most fun part. I fit the sleeve. I took it up just a little bit. I made it just a little bit too long. So now that I'm moving on to my final pattern, you're going to notice that it's a little cleaner. I'm like squaring my edges. I'm walking my patterns just to make sure everything is lining up and looking good. And I'm doing this because it is my final. This is going to be what I'm cutting my fashion fabric on. So I want it to look really nice. It's definitely not going to be up to my college professor's standards. Sorry, Dr. Ree. I once in my first patterning class, I got a 1/2 point on assignment. It was like we're doing these little half scales. I got a half a point because I did it so poorly, but I've gotten a lot better. And I understand my shorthand. These aren't going to be reproduced. These are just for me. I know what I'm trying to say, but I am still going to make it look nicer than my working patterns because my working patterns they're rough, I mean, to say the least, but it's really just to kind of get an idea and then I make them look nice for my final. A lot of people also will take existing patterns that have been made by someone else and alter them or make adjustments to them, which is a totally valid way to cosplay. I am never going to knock someone for doing that. It's not what I personally do, and that's just because I literally have a degree in apparel design. And I find it a lot easier to work with my own work and to start the process from entirely the beginning and really be able to mold it towards what I want. So there's definitely you can definitely get a pattern and change it. It's probably easier, it's probably quicker, but again, it's not what I prefer to do. I have the knowledge, I'm going to use it. After very carefully slipping out of my sample, I'm going to translate all of these pins onto my actual pattern. So I'm going to be taking it in at the princess seams. You can see I'm marking it in a different color so that I can tell what changes I've made. And once I have the final pattern, it's back to the floor again to pin my pattern down and cut it out. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, why not just make a top? Why not make something simpler? Why are you going into so much detail for something you're barely gonna see? And it's really a couple reasons. First, I'm crazy. Second, again, it's just showing the judges a level of detail that I'm paying attention to and thoughtfulness as to why this character would wear what they are wearing. So I have done the back and then the right side of the front. And so now I'm going to the left side. Remember, on the left side, I want to put a slit. So I measured where I want it. I want about 12.5 inches up. So I'm going to measure 13 inches and I'm going to serge about 13 inches up on each side. And then I am going to do a serging stitch up to that point. And I'm going to fold them back so I get that slit and I can finish it. And I'll do my little zigzag stitch on there and that'll make the slit. It'll look really cool. I don't know if I explained that well, but I'll show you how. So now I've got still the stretch seam, but I've got the little slit and I've just pinned it here so it stayed together. So then I'm just gonna fold this back and just give it a nice little top stitch. And it'll look great. Here it is with the slit. I'm very happy with how this came out. It hits pretty high on my thigh. I really like where it sits. Here it is without the zipper in the back yet, just to kind of do a little preliminary fit check. I'm going to throw a zipper in here. So I'm taking this ribbon and I'm going to zigzag stitch this on my raw edge. This is going to help my zipper not pull as I sew it so we don't get an uneven zipper. I'm also going to go a step further and I'm going to baste it in before I do my final sewing of it, just to make sure that everything lines up when I zip it. And here it is with the zipper in. We still need to add the sleeves, but I am really liking how this is sitting on my hips. So all that's left is to sew up the sleeves and put them on. And voila, here is the finished product. It is exactly what I was going for, especially the shape on these sleeves. And here it is with the hoop skirt. Here's our finished project for this video. Yay! I love it.
And just like that, we are about 10 to 12% done with this cosplay build. I'd put it around there. It's gonna get more complicated from here. These were really pretty easy pieces. Everything else is gonna be a lot more challenging and a little more exciting, I think, to build. I really do hope you stick with me through this project. I think it's gonna be super cool. It's gonna be really fun. I'm trying some new techniques. We're gonna get into 3D printing. Again, you get to see kind of where I shine, which is sewing and pattern making and just clothing all around. And if you wanna see it in person, I'm gonna be at MagicCon Vegas in May and I'm gonna be competing in it. That's the whole point of why I'm making this. So you can see me there. Come up to me, please say hi. I don't bite. I've been told that I am intimidating. Please say hi. I'll take a picture. I think it'll be really cool. And if you want to see the rest of what I'm working on, the rest of my content, you can find me everywhere. Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitch, TikTok, at VanQuig Cosplay. Please be sure to smash the hell out of that subscribe button and also lightly smash the bell so that you're updated when we get the next part of this cosplay build out. I think it's gonna be really cool. I hope you watch it. Thanks, bye.